Good afternoon, Friday, June 14th, 2024. We have a very interesting situation developing this week over the Lake Erie area and other shallow bodies of water right around there, including going all the way up into Quebec, Canada, including the Quebec City area. We also have places, again, along Lake Erie, Kingsville in that area, Essex County up there, an intense heat wave that will be moving over that area for several days with temperatures reaching close to 100 degrees. Many areas, temperatures actually reaching 100 degrees. What makes this so interesting is because the water over there is shallow. This means that the water temperatures are likely going to go way up, and this is going to produce a unique phenomena, something which we ordinarily only see by the Gulf of Mexico or the Persian Gulf, and at times the Caspian Sea. That water may become an essential source of humidity, of high dew point air as we go throughout the summer. Usually this would be an uncommon scenario. Lake Erie is too far up north to produce such high humidity as far as I know. This is the first that I'm hearing about it. We have the Midwest Corn Belt, which is also it's a shockaroo that the Corn Belt is capable of producing even higher dew points than the Gulf of Mexico when you have a tropical air mass over that area. But this is super interesting. We have a heat wave at the very beginning of summer, very intense heat wave, which is going to skyrocket those water temperatures. Who's ever heard of such a thing? Water temperatures usually don't skyrocket, but in this case, due to how shallow these water temperatures are, it is certainly possible that those water temperatures are going to go way up. And we currently have the European computer model forecasting dew points in some of those locations to go into the upper 70s. We even have a city in Canada which has a dew point of 80 degrees. That's what's forecasted to happen at the end of the week. And notice how the cities which are underneath, which are right to the south of Lake Erie, do not have such high dew points. Dew points remain in the 60s, so it's clear that the European computer model is forecasting Lake Erie to be a major source of humidity. The thing is, in order for that to happen, you have to have the water temperatures go up into at least the 70s, maybe even warmer. But the dew point cannot be higher than what the air temperature is, and the air temperature tends to be similar to what the water temperature is. That's why the Corn Belt has such potential, because it gets so hot there, and when you're on a body of water, even the Gulf of Mexico, you're really confined. The potential is confined to very close to what the water temperatures are. So for Lake Erie, for these dew points to be skyrocketing over possibly even a 10-degree rise in dew points, just going over the airflow, going over the short little distance of southern Lake Erie to northern Lake Erie, it's not a long distance at all. You have to wonder how high those water temperatures are going to be. Currently, the warmest water temperatures are believed to be around 70 degrees, and perhaps it's Toledo, Ohio. The warmest water temperature ever recorded in any of the Great Lakes, I believe, occurred in Lake Erie, 86 degrees back in 1988. Lake Michigan's highest water temperature, 81 degrees, which located some miles, 40, 50 miles or so south or southeast of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. That information comes from meteorologist Tom Skilling in the Ask Tom Why section, and it may not have been 40 miles, but Milwaukee, Wisconsin is associated with that warm water temperature in that area. So again, this will probably be the most interesting thing to monitor, along with where exactly the triple-digit heat goes. But the Lake Erie that's something unique. It's, something like that could have a massive influence on a larger area going all the way up into Canada, having a whole other weather effect with thunderstorms and who knows what. It could greatly impact the weather up there. So that's going to be something to look into and monitor for the next 7-10 days and really for the rest of the summer. Summer heat heads up into the Arctic Circle, even well north of the Arctic Circle of several hundred miles, 70 degrees north latitude. Ust-Lansk, Russia, high temperatures going into the mid-80s next week for Monday. Highs in the low 80s in some of the widespread areas, widespread low 80s, but isolated areas of the mid 80s. That's warm enough to issue heat warnings in that part of the world. again, this is north of the Arctic Circle. Arctic Circle is 67 degrees north latitude, or 66 degrees north latitude, and a little bit in between 66 and 67. This is up at 70 degrees north latitude, so a few hundred miles north of where the Arctic Circle is. There is no nighttime over there, but the sun is low in the sky. When you have clear skies, the solar insolation is highest in the world right now in the Arctic. So that's the reason why you can get so warm. Fort Yukon, Alaska, temperatures going into the low 80s tomorrow. Again, that's also the Arctic. So those are just two examples of where it's going to be real warm. The difference is Fort Yukon, Alaska, it's more of an isolated area. When you head into Russia, it's really more widespread. The super intense stuff stays well to the south by about at least 2,500 miles in India and Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, all along the Persian Gulf, 110s, even 120s Fahrenheit. That's approaching 50 degrees Celsius, 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. And up north again, that's isolated spots of 30 degrees Celsius, but upper 20 Celsius. That's more in the widespread area. It's difficult to find the cities, really. On a lot of maps, you can just find latitude and longitude, but it's very hard to find the cities. But one of the cities is Ust-Lansk, Russia, but the heat really goes further north than that. The desert Southwest is in for very impressive stuff this week due to a heat dome, but the eastern U.S., the Northeast, New England, New York, Detroit, Michigan, all of these areas are in for like an anomaly of heat, just stuff that doesn't usually happen, especially in the month of June. Possibly one of the most powerful heat domes right now, forecasted to be at 600 decimeter heat dome, as we spoke about before, peaking right over Long Island, New York right now. Could be some sea breezes in some areas closer to the coast, could keep those temperatures down, but nonetheless, hot and humid conditions with heat indices well above 100 degrees. This is all along the coast, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, even Boston, Massachusetts, although again, you have to watch for that sea breeze, but temperatures very high along with heat indices. Detroit, Michigan, several days of just intense heat. St. Louis, Missouri, just intense heat, and so many other cities. Even Chicago, Illinois will get in on the action, but there is that lake breeze that is also going to interfere with the heat for areas closer to the lake. This heat dome brings the first day of its heat wave to Detroit, Michigan, with the possibility of thunderstorms, even heavy rain, as they reside along the northern edge, the ring of fire, the northern edge of this dome of heat. Those upper 80s to low 90s for forecast highs for Detroit, Michigan really take off for the rest of the week. They really skyrocket. And so does this heat dome as it intensifies to 597 decimeters as it continues to move northeast. But it doesn't stop there. It continues intensifying to a level that we saw last summer around Phoenix, Arizona, to 600 decimeters. These are heights that are at the 500 MB level of the atmosphere. Heat expands, and it's going all the way up, well into the upper atmosphere. That it hits 600 decimeters as it moves over Manhattan and Long Island. This is where the heat dome maximizes. There is an eastward translation of this heat dome, which many times means temperatures gradually trend downward as things move east, but this heat dome intensifies as it moves east. The National Weather Service is talking about 10 mile-per-hour winds, which they're speaking about, they imply might make the situation feel cooler in Detroit, Michigan. Well, here's the thing. It's important to point out that once temperatures hit 95 degrees or higher, wind actually makes the temperature feel hotter. So we're dealing with something very intense. These types of breezes might make the temperatures feel a little bit cooler in the morning, but by the time you hit the afternoon, forecast highs, expert forecasts are calling for highs in the upper 90s in the city areas around Detroit, highs well into the mid-90s in some of the rural areas. But either way, we're talking about highs reaching 95 degrees. For those of you that are into the Celsius system, we're talking about highs of 35 degrees Celsius, and the rural areas, temperatures going up to about 37 degrees Celsius, 36 or 37 degrees Celsius for Detroit, Michigan, but clearly it's capable of reaching highs of 38 degrees Celsius. That's clearly a possibility, and as we showed a couple days ago the screenshot of the European computer model showing widespread hundreds all across the East Coast. Again, if you look at the wind flow, you do notice a sea breeze, but that has to be looked into again, and one has to wonder what type of impact that's going to have on the surface temperatures. But either way, intense heat is forecasted to happen. The Detroit, Michigan National Weather Service tells us that excessive heat watches and excessive heat warnings are likely to be issued. In addition, this is also an extended heat spell for a very large part of the country, and it's happening at the same time that another heat dome is taking place in the desert Southwest and affecting much of the West Coast. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. We have a powerhouse typhoon which has developed off in the Pacific Ocean. Extreme heat continues over the desert Southwest. A big shockaroo to many of you. This is especially true in regards to what's going to be going on in Alaska. We have parts of the world that are so hot right now. Temperatures are expected to go into the low 130s. What also makes the situation absolutely spectacular over there is the enormous differences between night and day. We have a remarkable weather pattern change that's going to be taking place over the next few days. We're going from one extreme to the next extreme. Small soft hail is falling with the storm. There's a possibility that snow squalls may develop. 27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan when there's intense weather. That's a time of celebration. Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.